Good morning, everyone, and welcome to your Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Tuesday, the 18th of February. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by Jonny McFarlane, who's sipping a latte or a lovely hot cocoa, perhaps. How's it going, Jonny?
I'm good. It is a latte, Derek. Well spotted. I'm sitting in for Josh, who's on holiday. He's got his feet up, relaxing away with the wife on a trip to deepest, darkest Highlands bolt hole type thing. So hope he's enjoying that, and I'm happy to be here in his stead. I've not done my hair this morning, as you can tell, which is a bit of a disaster, but there you go. Never mind.
You need both, yeah.
I don't mind looking stupid for the Rangers Review.
Well, as long as you're on, Scotty says, good to see you, Jonny. Yes, absolutely. Right, bit of admin before we get stuck in, folks. I know that many of you watch us on the Rangers Review on a Monday, on a weekday morning. We do have loads other videos on the channel, of course. Found out that of those that tune in, of which there are thousands, half of you are subscribers. So those who have subscribed can comment, and I see we've got a host of comments in at the moment, but you have to subscribe, which is totally free. You don't have to pay anything or anything like that, but yeah, I'm looking to bring up the subscriber numbers. So yeah, get your comments in. We're going to do a bit of a Q&A show today, myself and Jonny, and yeah, we'll get through as many of your comments as we possibly can. But yeah, just a slight tweak to the show, folks. Hopefully it won't ruin your enjoyment. I don't think it will, because many of you are subscribers anyway that interact with the show. So yeah, keep it up, please. It keeps us going here. Right, so we'll start off with some new roundabout news affecting Rangers, if you want, Jonny, before we dive right into some of the questions that are coming in. Touched on it in our afternoon news bulletin yesterday. Ben Davies has been speaking down south. Now, by all accounts, he's doing well at Birmingham City, who've turned into a bit of a mini Rangers, if you like. Of course, Kieran Dill and Scott Roy also down there. Birmingham City leading the way in the English League One as they look to return to the Championship after being relegated last season. They've spent a shed load of cash to do so, outspent pretty much every single team combined in League One to get back up into the Championship. But Ben Davies has been a standout in the back line, and he was quizzed on his future after the game at the weekend. And of course, no buyout option with regards to the loan deal, just a straight out loan. He says, I don't go on social media, or not looking for myself at least, so I haven't noticed. But if that's the case, it's really flattering and brilliant to have their support, talking about the Birmingham City fans. He says, I haven't thought about my future yet. I just wanted to come out and do a year's loan and try and get going again, because it was a bit stop-start at Rangers for me. I'm happy with the way it's going, but I haven't thought past now. I came here looking to play as many games as possible. And when I first came, I realised the strength and depth that the squad had and the quality they had all over the pitch, especially at the back. So it's took a bit of time, and I've been patient. I've done a good run of games now, so it feels good. So pretty much what you expect a loan signing to say at this stage. I mean, Václav Černý is similar. But he's been asked about his future. He's been pretty non-committal, Jonny, with it. And Ben Davies here as well. Can't see Ben Davies coming back up the roads. I think that the ideal scenario is that he continues to do well down there in Birmingham, pay cash to take him down.
Yeah, that's obviously the dream situation for Rangers. Any of these loan players go down to their clubs and perform terrifically, and then you have the club over a barrel in terms of the negotiation if there isn't that obligation or option in the contract, and you have the situation whereby you can negotiate a juicy deal. I think the slight thing here is, Derek, is I would expect those players to go down to Birmingham and perform. It is, after all, League One. We're not talking about the Championship. We're not talking about the Premier League. We're talking about the third tier of English football. And Ben Davies has got a good background from his time at Preston of performing well in the Championship. When Liverpool went and signed him, the whole thing about it was that Jurgen Klopp needed a left-sided central defender at the time, and they put in the data, and Ben Davies was the best defender in the Championship based on his underlying data that Liverpool could sign. So he is a performer, a proven performer in the English lower leagues, and it's no surprise that he's gone to League One and done well. to me, it's never going to work at Rangers. He's not physical enough. It's a similar situation to me to Robin Proper, who I think is a similar standard and similar style of player to Ben Davies. Maybe Proper's a little bit better, maybe. Ben Davies is certainly good with the ball at his feet, but doesn't have that kind of dominating physicality that means he's going to be comfortable in the bread and butter games in Scottish football. We saw that time and time again. He was absolutely fine at Ibrox, but the minute you go to the away games and you're under a little bit of pressure, he struggled. So you've got to say that it's been a decent loan move so far based on what we've seen, and you've got to hope that from a Rangers point of view, Ben Davies will be packing his bags, because I'm led to believe his salary is about 27 grand a week. So it's not an insignificant chunk. And if you can get that off the wage bill, you can start moving towards getting more players in and having a bit more scope with the transfer level, with the transfer market. Sorry.
Yeah, the only thing with Ben Davies, I think he's a decent player. I think the physicality is something that was levelled at him when he was at Rangers. I think you could say the same about Robin Proper. Pretty much in Europe, you don't necessarily concern yourself with it, but against the hustle and bustle of the Scottish teams, then he often found himself struggling. So, he's on a lot of money, like you say, Jonny. So I think if Rangers can negotiate at a good sale price, of course, he came at about 4 million quid. He came in at the time from Liverpool.
Yeah, it was about 3.5 million, Dirk.
Yeah, so I doubt they'll get that back. It depends. I mean, if he goes on and has a really good end to the season, then hopefully Rangers can do better at negotiating as they did in the summertime and get a bit of money for him, and then go and look to strengthen in other areas, including the backline, which I think I've said it before. I've said it many times that Rangers, for me, need to bring in more physicality in the summertime. Who knows what Rafa Fernandez is going to be like? John Souttar, of course, is someone whose contract negotiations are continuing just now. Robin Proper, I could possibly see moving on in the summer. Leon Balogun, spoke to Chris yesterday. I don't see him getting a new contract, Jonny. So that's an area of the pitch that Rangers are going to have to strengthen in the summer.
Yeah, big style. Listen, I've talked about this before, Derek, and I'll say it again. Fundamentally, you need to have a really, really strong centre-back pairing to win a championship. We go back through the championships that Rangers have won over the years. They've always had that really legendary partnership at the back there to solidify the whole team. It's the foundation of any title-winning squad, is that centre-back duo, and I don't think Rangers have that at the moment. Listen, Fernandez, we don't know much about him. He may end up being very, very good. You look at the other players in the team, in Ciala, I like the look of a lot of what I see, but still raw. I think he got caught under the ball against Hearts a couple of times, certainly once.
But I thought he was probably him and Butland were man of the match, Jonny. I thought he was really good.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. But I suppose what I'm trying to say is, and I'm not trying to give the guy a hard time, because I thought he was really good in the game. I don't think he's absolutely perfect. I think in the air, that's maybe a slightly weaker aspect of his game, and that's something you're going to get tested on throughout the season in Scotland. But without doubt, I mean, he deserves his place and has done really, really well. The rest of them, as you say, I think there's question marks. Souttar's got 2 years left on his deal. Come the end of the season, you're going to have to think about selling or extending there, and I'm not sure that there's that much appetite to extend. Certainly, the money Rangers are now looking to pay. As you say, Leon Balogun is getting on and has got serious injury problems. I think he's a great person to have around the dressing room, but I mean, is it realistic to keep him going given his availability this season? I'm not sure about that. I don't think Leon's on a huge salary, so there's that to take into account. But most people would say, no, you're better to get someone in who can play game after game after game.
Yeah.
Robin Proper, we've already discussed. So I think there's a lot of surgery to be done in there, Derek. You look across the city and you say Carter Vickers and Trusty, who's probably their number one pick centre-back pairing. How, are they better than what Rangers have? I would say it's significantly better. So until Rangers can have a centre-back pairing that's at least on a par with Celtic, that's a key indicator of where the title's going to go. And I think it's really difficult for Rangers to sign centre-halves, Derek, because they need to be capable of playing out, and they also need to be capable of dealing with the bread and butter stuff. And to get those guys that can do both, it's quite expensive. Or you have to get somebody right at the start of their career and roughing out their edges, a bit like what's going to be happening with Nsiala. Personally, I'd probably get to the end of the season, and if Suter doesn't want to re-sign, I'd look at pairing Nsiala with a Katic type as a perfect partnership. You've got one guy that goes and attacks the ball. Okay, when you're playing against a low block at Ibrox, you might want to switch him out for somebody who's better with the ball, maybe a Fernandes, for example.
Both left-footed, though, aren't they? Both left-sided.
Well, yeah, there is that issue, but I'm not necessarily saying.
I'd bring Katic back. I was going to say that anyway. I'd bring him back in the summer as well.
For me, it's a Katic type, Derek, as opposed to Katic. You know, like someone who's a big, burly, strong guy who can head the ball and can deal with the defensive stuff and is aggressive. Not necessarily Katic, but someone who can kind of lead and do that aggressive defending role. Whether or not that'll happen or not, let's wait and see.
Yeah. Never mind a Katic type. I'd bring in the real deal. Someone, John says, "Is that a Hibs mug, Johnny?" I don't think it's a Hibs mug. It's
a Starbucks mug. Starbucks.
Yeah. Other coffee shops are available, of course, out there, folks. So interestingly, I seen a stat just to go off piste that you don't get as much caffeine in the Starbucks coffees as you do elsewhere. I think it's one of the lowest amounts of caffeine you get in their coffee. So just FYI, folks, if you're heading out to Starbucks this afternoon, you might want to reconsider your coffee shop. But there you go. Just staying on the topic of the defence, Johnny, Robert raises the point. Do you guys think we'll get that Dutch defender Nana back? This is Cashin Weersjo, of course, who we won't see again this season, I'd imagine, given this injury, his knee injury that he suffered for the Netherlands under 21s, which is just typical Rangers. Doesn't get injured playing for Rangers, but whilst on international duty. I like the look of him before he get injured, Johnny. He's had major injuries in the past. I wouldn't be pursuing that one personally, just given the history of players that have came to the club and just been on his treatment table for far too long. Good player when he's fit, but I would be apprehensive about that one. I know Rangers had an option to buy on him in the summer. Are you taking up that option?
No. The days of Rangers signing guys who are coming off the back of big injuries should be over. We've seen what's happened with Oscar Cortes. We've seen what's happened multiple times in the past, going back 30 years. I think Rangers need to start looking at the physical robustness of players as a key performance indicator before they sign them. And we have to say that Cashin Weersjo, I think, as you say, looked good in the short spell that we saw him. But fundamentally, I don't think you can be gambling on a player that's had such a bad injury. And I don't think Cashin Weersjo would be coming cheap. So that's the other element of it, Derek. It's not like we're talking about a guy coming in for £500,000 here. So no, I don't think that'll happen. I don't think it should happen. But he did look like a good player, and you have to say you wish him all the best, and hopefully he can come through it.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be £500,000, but he's not cut the mustard at Feyenoord. I think they'll be just looking to offload him. I think they brought him from a lower division team. I can't remember who, but never really was fancied there under Arne Slot and the other manager there. He's been out on loan, of course, and I'd imagine they'll be looking just to. I think they paid about £2 million for him at the time, but I'd be surprised to see him up at Rangers. Another player who's injured. I've seen a lot of people questioning where is he. Ross with the point, are we 100% obligated to buy Cortes this summer? Surely we had some clause in the deal given his injury last season. Yes, Rangers is an obligation to buy for him, just like the Diamandi deal last year. So Rangers will stump up, I believe, round about in the region of £4 million for this guy. Looks like a bad deal for me, Johnny. I get the point that Philippe Clement has been asked on a number of occasions in press conferences, and he's not going to say he doesn't believe he has a future at Rangers. Of course, he's not going to come out and say that, but fans are questioning why this amount of money was set aside to pay for this guy, given that we hardly seen him before he got injured, and we've hardly seen him this season. Jury's out in that one. It looks like a bit of a costly mistake at this point.
Yeah, it's a really, really frustrating one. I know that people inside the club are extremely frustrated with it as well, because they look at injury histories when they're signing players, and Oscar Cortes had no injuries before he arrived at Rangers. He had zero.
Yeah.
So, they thought they were signing a player that had a kind of blank slate in terms of his and was going to be available for every game going forwards. And he comes in, and I think he's played 7 appearances this season. We're in February. That's not great value. I would say in those 7 appearances, these were always games where he was building up. So you never saw the best of him, and then he was struck down again with another injury. It's really, really, really worrying, given that the transfer is set in stone. It's done. It's there to be chalked up towards next season's spend.
Yes.
But all you can do is say, hopefully, he's just had a series of continual terrible luck, and with time and him coming into his body, because he's still just a young man growing up in terms of physically growing into his body, that these might kind of dissipate and end. But it's certainly one that you would say, Derek, now if you had an option to buy, you wouldn't be using it. But I can see why the decision was made, looked really good when he came in, had an injury that kept him out after 4 or 5 games. You thought he was coming back in the summer. Seemed like a kind of one of these deals that you would just press the button on and do.
Yeah.
But as we've seen, this is the problem with Scottish football. This is the problem with our climate. This is the problem with bringing in foreign players, is that you never know how they're going to react to any of this. And a lot of it is physiological. And, a guy from South America, it's a big shock to the system coming to the Scottish climate. Not so much when he's in the south of France, or wherever it was. He was in France. I think it was the south of France. And, you can see reactions. And then you've got the physicality of our football, the kind of unchecked power that is used by defenders that you don't get away with in other leagues. It's always got the potential to cause problems. And sadly, that looks to be the case at the moment. But, there's still time, and perhaps Oscar Cortes will come over these hurdles and will come good. And I think every Rangers fan will hope that's the case, because there was enough in those first 5 games when he arrived fit that made you think that he was a real talent.
Yeah. I know I like the look of him, but he's almost seems like the club is cursed at times with these players that come in and you hardly see them. I see a lot of comments as well saying, where is Dujon Sterling? Don't know at this point in time. I know that Danilo is back training. He was training himself individually, so he wasn't available for the Hearts game, but he should be back soon. For how long, who knows? He's another one that seems to drop out after a few games injured again. So, it's a serious problem, given that Philip Clement is what he's told Chris Jack in that pre-season camp in Holland about getting on top of the medical side of things, and Rangers wouldn't have a season like they had last season. It's probably been as bad, you could say.
I don't think it's quite as bad. There was a point last season when they had like 11 or 12 senior players out. I mean, make no mistake, right? I'm not getting away from the fact that Clement made mistakes, that some of the players made mistakes. I really do think Rangers would have won the league last year had they not had such catastrophic injuries.
Yeah,
Cortes has been a key part of that, because Rangers were a bit toothless as the season went on, weren't they? They struggled a little bit to create chances, and if you've got Cortes on the left, then it would have made a difference. I mean, losing Sima, your best player arguably, was absolutely disastrous, and that was a huge one as well. But I also think, and listen, we've discussed this before, the signing of Fabio Silva, he's a good player. You can see what he's doing in La Liga this season, but he wasn't suited to our league, and that money could have been better spent on someone that I think could have come in and made an impact straight away. But listen, no point in relitigating all that all over again. But I feel like I have to say it. And injuries is a main part of the problem that's been happening at Rangers, I would say, since after the season after the Europa League final, when 7 players were brought in by Giovanni van Bronckhorst and Ross Wilson. And of the 7, I think 5 were pretty much injured most of that season. And how can you start a refresh or a revolution or an evolution, whatever you want to call it, if the players that you have aren't robust enough to play week in, week out? And that's one thing about Sterile Dessers, Derek. James Tavernier, guys get criticism, but they turn up every week.
Yep, exactly. Big shout out to BK's tuning in from Taupo in New Zealand. So yeah, good evening to you, buddy. Thank you for tuning in. This is an interesting one, just to do with more to do with us. Chaparuni says, "I'm interested in your viewing figures. Have they dropped off with the general apathy with the team at the moment?" No, there's everyone's tuning in, which. Are you a bit surprised at that? I'm not entirely sure. We all want to hear about Rangers. I mean, my wife says to me, I think last week, saying, "What are you going to talk about today? There's no football to talk about. There's always Rangers news to discuss every weekday morning." That's the beauty of it. So no, they haven't fallen away, Chaparuni. But that apathy thing, it's a comment that's come in from someone else. Bluebells are
Derek,
as soon as attendances at this rate as my Wi-Fi decides to die. But what do you make of that, Jonny?
Listen, going back to the point about the apathy, the first point, and viewing figures and things like that, it would be better for everyone, the fans, the club, us, everyone, if it was positive and that there was a title race and it was exciting and things were on the line. Fundamentally, what we've got is a season where 18th of February, it's completely done and dusted, with the exception of the Europa League, which we know, barring a miracle, Rangers aren't going to win. So that apathy is there, but at the same time, this is a truly huge football club, and there is enormous interest in this club at all times. And while people are annoyed and people are fed up, I think as much as anything else, they want to feel like they still know what's going on. They want to feel like they get a sense of their frustration reflected back to them. And I think people will continue to watch channels like this, and will continue to be interested in what's going on. But yes, I think there's an impact with the apathy in terms of when things are so bad, it's almost it's there. When things are very good, it's there. When things are good, it's there. But when things are just below very bad, like so this week, because Queen's Park have dumped Rangers out of the cup, everyone wants to watch, everyone wants to see what the reaction is, and then you go and you beat Hearts. Nothing's really changed. We've just moved a week forwards. Yep. Yes, they've won, but fundamentally the problems are still there. So that's kind of the problem, isn't it? There's no sense of forward momentum moving towards what I think every Rangers fan has always wanted. This idea of hope, this idea of building for the future. And that's one thing, like Steven Gerrard got a lot of criticism, Derek. You know, you remember the period when Gerrard took over. For the first season, not everyone thought it was amazing. Not everyone could see it, but by and large, most people could see that there was improvement, steady improvement. And you saw what he did in Europe, and you saw that he started to adjust it in the league. And then the second season, they started so well and did so well for a 6-month period, and then all fell away, and it looked like it was going to go down the tubes for Steven Gerrard. And then COVID happened, and that probably saved them, allowed them to reset and think about what they learned from that progress and the very, very good chunk, and why it fell away. And then the third season, obviously, boom, it happened. But the thing about Gerrard, fundamentally, Derek, was he was given time and you could see the progress over a period of time. And I think that's just what Rangers fans want to see, especially this season. They want to see, is there some hope for next season? And under Gerrard, despite the flaws, despite the bad results, you always felt that progress was there. You always felt that line was ticking up. It might have been ticking up slowly, but it was moving in the right direction. And I think fundamentally, a lot of us will look at the domestic spell of Clement's time in charge, and we'll say you can't really see it. If anything, it's kind of gone backwards. Now, the underlying data might not support that. The underlying data might say that the XG is going up and the conceded XG is going down. I'm not sure. I've not looked in the detail of that. But listen, we're talking about defeats to Queen's Park, the worst one in the whole history of the club in terms of the Scottish Cup. There's been numerous bad results this season, and fundamentally, you look at the Celtic games. Normally, they should be the decider, and that's eeksy peeksy. It's 3-0 for one, 3-0 for the other, and a 3-3 draw in a cup final that Rangers lost by the narrowest of narrow margins, which was a penalty kick shootout. So the Celtic games are taking care of themselves. It's the other stuff that's the problem, and you need to get a sense that the manager is solving the problems and improving things for next season. And you saw against Hearts, Hearts had more XG than Rangers. They had more shots than Rangers in that game. And I think most Rangers fans that I've talked to have been open and honest and said Hearts deserve to win that game. And I agree with them. And, you know, I think it was a penalty, to be honest. I don't know what you think, Derek. I mean, there's been a lot of controversy on that. For me, it was a penalty. If that was against Rangers, I'd be expecting everyone to be screaming for it because it's two hands on the back. Now, it's subjective because you can say, well, was that enough?
It's only Hearts fans that are calling it. I mean, just neutral observers are saying it's not a penalty. If you're giving penalties for that, then you're giving loads of penalties a game.
For me, it's a penalty. I think it's two hands in the back. So, listen, this is a classic thing. We're going to now talk about this penalty for the rest of the pod. I don't want to do that. The point is just this, that take that away. Forget about that. Hearts still had loads and loads and loads of chances, right, to win the game. There's no doubt about that. And that's the more important thing than the penalty, right? The more important thing is that Hearts, over the 90 minutes, were the better side. And I doubt many people would disagree with that. That's a problem. It's not a problem if it's a one-off. If it's a one-off, then you say to yourself, you know, well, listen, that's mentality, and sometimes you need mentality, sometimes you need to win ugly, sometimes you need to get through these games. But when it's kind of like you watch it and you're saying it's a repeat, it's a continual repeat of the style, then that's when it's a problem.
I get a bit of stick yesterday saying I like winning games like that. If Rangers could win every game from now until the end of the season, winning ugly, I would take that over playing well. I get why many would argue that they want to see performances at this point in time. Philip Clement just needs results at the end of the day. And if Rangers had played well yesterday but get beat, what do you think the reaction would have been, Jonny?
I totally agree with you, Derek. It's a good point. It's an important point. But I would take you back to what I just said, which is, I think, see if you win that game like that, and you're on a great run of form, and you're playing well most weeks, I think the fans love it. The manager loves it because it speaks to a mentality of getting over the line. I think if it's in context of everything else that we've seen, then it just looks like it's luck. Do you know what I mean? And that's the difference. I totally see. Walter Smith used to win these games. Going to Tynecastle's hard. Going to Pittodrie's hard. I've seen phenomenal Rangers teams, phenomenal ones with world-class players, go to these grounds and struggle. So a win in these grounds is a good result because I know from history that they're not easy places to win. But it's context is everything in this scenario, and that's where I disagree with you, Derek, because I think, from my point of view, the way I think a lot of people look at this game is, well, it's just a continuation, and the only reason it wasn't a continuation is just barefaced luck.
I get that, but I mean, Rangers are winning at these grounds now when before you would see them dropping points. A few points coming in. Steve-O says that we get a week off JB and we're still talking about XG. Big Phil tunes in. We know he tunes in religiously to the show in the morning. He says 5 league wins on the bounce. Some credit for Clement. And by 2 or more goals these matches as well. But the thing is, Queen's Park is just such a black mark on that he won't get credit for it.
Yeah, it's real politic, isn't it? It's just the way that Rangers works. It's a big club. you can't get beaten by a lower league team in the cup that you need to win and expect there not to be any criticism. It's just what you sign up for when you come to a club this size with a fervent fan base that want to win everything, that have gone through a 3-season lull or a 3-season period of poor management that has led to the nadir of seasons, and unfortunately for the fans that they're having to go through this. What I think is really important between now and the end of the season is that we see some leadership on and off the pitch that shows that there will be an improvement for next year, that there is green shoots, that things are going to go up the way. And I think we're still to see that, Derek. We're still to get a sense of that. And I think until there's better communication and more communication coming out about what the plans are, it's going to be very interesting to see what the season ticket sales are like. Because I get the sense that the apathy may reflect in that.
Yeah. Just on ourselves, of course, and whether people are tuning in, given the state that Rangers are in. Steve-O says, I'll admit I struggle to switch on the Rangers review just now. Nothing to do with the quality of content from you guys, but the overall mood surrounding our once great club. Still a Rangers review member, though. We're happy to hear that, Steve-O. Thank you for supporting us at the channel. David Joe says, this is my coping pod. Don't take it away. Don't worry, it's not going anywhere. And Bolt Your Bog Bag gets in touch. The show is great, guys. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you for saying so. It means a lot for your lovely comments. Just a reminder, folks, as I touched on at the top of the show, you have to subscribe if you want to fire your comments in. I know that so many of you tune in on a weekday morning. So we've made it now that you have to subscribe. It's totally free, remember. Not charging you for it, but if you want to fire your comments in, then you have to be a subscriber to the channel. There's a few other points before we wrap things up. You started one here, Johnny. You want?
Yeah, I really like that comment. I think that's probably a really, really perceptive comment there from Stephen T.
Yeah.
Doesn't see the season ticket sales dropping, but you expect to see it in the attendance. I think we've kind of seen that this season, whereby Ibrox isn't as full as it would normally be, but there's still the sale of tickets. In terms of the season tickets are maxed out. You see this at Celtic Park a lot, to be fair, as well, don't you? You see when they have some home games in the Premiership. And I think it's reflective of a kind of malaise, a boredom with the kind of structure of the league in a larger sense. But also the way Rangers are playing. Fundamentally, we've had bad seasons before where this hasn't happened, but you're seeing it now, and I think you'll see it again next season if there isn't an improvement. And that's going to have an effect on that bottom line. It'll be very interesting to see Rangers' financial figures for this season, because you're obviously talking about the effect of Hampden, the effect of this, the malaise, less people coming through the door despite the fact their tickets are bought. You might think, well, the ticket has been bought, so what's the difference? Less people buying programs, less people buying food, less people, spending. So I think that's probably true. People don't want to lose their season ticket. They know that they're gold dust. They know that there's a waiting list. But it doesn't mean they have to come to every game, Derek, and people perhaps being a bit more selective. And I think that's probably spot on.
Yeah. Before we go, Johnny, we're not getting you on, I don't think, for the remainder of the week. We will find out on Friday who Rangers will face in the Europa League last 16. Any team that you would like to come up against? I know that Stevie wants to face Fenerbahce because of the Mourinho effect. I think they've pretty much secured their place. They're 3-0 up over Anderlecht. The match between Twente and Bodo Glimt is still one that you'd imagine the Norwegians will fancy their chances of coming back from that 2-1 deficit at home. Of probably the three likely teams that you could face, anyone you would think Rangers you would like to go up against?
Well, listen, if we're talking about getting through, I think I'd fancy Rangers' chances against Twente and Bodo Glimt.
Yeah.
So I would rather have one of those two teams. I don't really care which. Probably rather have Twente, to be honest. Fenerbahce and Jose Mourinho would be fantastic from a point of view of get along to the presser, getting Jose's reaction to Ibrox. It would be box office in terms of all the little stories around the game. But I think Fenerbahce are good. Jose's good in these competitions. I think that would be a tough one for Rangers. And listen, they're already 3-0 up, beating Anderlecht, which tells you they've still got a bit about them. Dzeko's getting on a little bit, but he's still very good. And the same with Tadic. These are guys that can perform at that level. So yeah, I'd say probably, and that's a good point about Lammers, because you know that absolutely is going to happen. I mean, that would just, Lammers would come be a number 9 and dominate. So Bodo Glimt probably would be my chosen one.
Yeah. Bodo Glimt for me as well, I've got to say. I know I've said it before. I think that their season doesn't start properly until March time as well. So they'll be probably in the pre-season at this point in time. And Rangers have came a cropper before, if you remember, back in Walter's days, coming up against Scandinavian opposition. Gothenburg, I remember, putting Rangers out. In fact, Steven Gerrard, of course, when Rangers went to Malmo and went out of the Champions League qualifiers as well. So she would be on the other foot with that one, but they're a decent side under Knutsen, who's always linked with jobs elsewhere, but it's one of those ones I think if you take him out of there, I don't think you would work as well. It's just one of those match made in heaven jobs up there at Bodo Glimt. But that would be the team I would fancy Rangers up against. Yeah,
I mean, it's a very specific job. People talk about Knutsen for bigger jobs, but I don't know if it's the club and the environment and the way that they run things that's the star there as opposed to the coach. Time will tell, obviously, if he leaves and it falls apart. But for example, him coming to Rangers would be the shell shock of all shell shocks. Just the difference in the media, the difference in the coverage, the difference in the fans.
Yeah.
I think that would be a step too far, and I'm never a big one on him when he's mentioned for the job because of that. I mean, they are a very small side. I mean, Hearts are much bigger than that side. Aberdeen are much bigger than Bodo Glimt, fundamentally as clubs. We're talking about a Motherwell or maybe a kind of Falkirk style club.
Well,
they've done incredibly well, and he's done an amazing job. But I don't think he's I don't think it's necessarily transferable.
Yeah, it will be interesting how those games plan out on Thursday evening.
The key thing, Derek, is that these ties are winnable. And listen, Rangers had in the run to the Europa League in 2022, they had a game that no one thought they would win that wasn't really winnable against Borussia Dortmund, and they got through it. But that triggered a series of these kind of winnable games that were kind of 50-50. If you think of Red Star, if you think of Braga, these were games that were difficult, that Rangers could have lost. But they were the foundation points of getting to where Rangers got to. And then up against Leipzig with that team, you think of players that they had at the time, and Kunu and Olmo, and there were so many of them that have gone on to better things from that side. Rangers absolutely shouldn't have beat Leipzig over 2 legs. I mean, they were far better in terms of on paper.
I think the Dortmund game just ignited something, because when Rangers get drawn against Dortmund, you think, oh, it's a glamour tie, brilliant, but they'll be going no further. And then Dortmund happened, and you're thinking, well, if you put Dortmund out, who are probably the favourites for the competition, then you should fear no one. And the momentum built after that. So
maybe this Rangers side can think back to that Man United game where, they should have got at least a draw at Old Trafford. And if you're talking about 2 legs, that's an incredibly good result. Against Spurs, who have had a poor season, yes, but still a terrific team. Held them and should have won. You've got Dessers going through one-on-one with the goalie in the last 5 minutes and doesn't hit the net. It's a great save, to be fair, but I think they should have confidence based on those 2 games that they can cause even really, really top sides problems.
Yeah.
Now I get Gary Neville will be watching this, tearing his hair out that I'm calling Manchester United a top side, based on what they've been up to this season.
They're garbage, aren't they?
Yeah. You get my point. And if you're going up against one of these teams, even if it is Fenerbahce, then I think that would be like 60-40 in Fenerbahce's favour, or 65-35, but Rangers still got a right good chance. And I think they'd be the favourites against the other two. So, listen, once you get into that last...
This is the season. I'm just delighted that it's a competition that Rangers are still involved in, because if they weren't involved in this, how bleak would it have been? It's bleak already, but...
I saw somebody earlier saying, Fenerbahce is only those ties that could get my blood up.
Nah.
I mean, if you get to the last 8, I mean, we've seen before, once you get there, anything can happen. So, no, I think everyone in Scotland's blood should be up for this one, because regardless of who it is, this is a really good opportunity to have a deep, deep run. It's not often teams get to the quarterfinals of the Europa League or any European competition. I know Rangers have had a great record in this competition in recent years, but it's still a serious achievement given the TV deal and the quality of our league.
Yeah. I think come the Thursday night when Rangers are back in action in this competition, then the blood will be bubbling away and the battle fever will be on. But until then, we just need to, like you said earlier on, just tick off the games and count down the days until we get to, I think, March the 6th is the away leg for Rangers. But remember that draw on Friday. Right. Jonny, you want to jump in there?
No, not at all, Derek. I was just going to, it just did occur to me, like, what would you give for another run to Seville? No, obviously it's not going to be in Seville. It's actually going to be, it's Bilbao, isn't it?
Yes.
So, but I mean, it would just be the most Rangers thing imaginable for Rangers to continue to be pretty rubbish in the league and then go to the final. It would be mad. But we all loved it so much in 2022. It was the ride of a lifetime, wasn't it? And you and Josh were at those games, and you remember it well. And every part of it was phenomenal. Very romantic thinking back to that period. It was our first year at the Rangers Review, and it felt like it was something special, and it certainly was. And like I say, I just want to say again, it's just once you're in that last 8, Derek, if you can get over this hurdle, you can start to dream.
Yeah.
And listen, it won't happen, but it's just that dream, isn't it? It's having the dream. It's having the hope.
You never know. You never know. It depends on the draw as well. I think if Rangers can negotiate past this last 16, there are very tasty teams that they could face. But you're going to have to beat the best to win this trophy. And as James says, Scottish Cup upsets in history follow European runs. Here is hoping. Yeah, absolutely, Bill. If anything, the
omens are in, Derek. The omens are in.
If anything is to go by as well, I mean, Rangers went and beat Hearts when they went put out of the Scottish Cup by Berwick and Hamilton Accies back in the 60s and the 80s. They went and beat Hearts the following week. And it happened, of course, last weekend. Rangers put out by Queen's Park went and beat Hearts. So, perhaps, as Aaron says, some of the teams Rangers could face next, Lazio or Roma. Interestingly,
no problem.
Claudio Ranieri at Roma now, which is just bonkers. I think this is about his 45th time that he's been in charge of them. But take any of those on.
Listen, I don't think a wee trip to Rome, although a little dangerous to be fair for European nights, Rangers fans would have to be very careful with that one. But it would be fantastic. It would be fantastic to have one of those two teams coming to Scotland as well.
Getting ahead of ourselves, of course, but it's something to look forward to at least, because there is nothing else really. Right, that'll do us there. Big thank you to Jonny and to you all for tuning into the show as ever. It is very much appreciated. Thank you again, and enjoy your Tuesday. If I don't speak to you later on, I'm back on tomorrow morning. Stevie's joining me tomorrow at 9:30. Speaking of Stevie, those of you that are subscribed to the website, Stevie's weekly opinion piece is on the site as we speak, so do go and give it a read, folks. But we'll wrap up there for now, and we'll speak to you later on. Bye for now.